Hey everyone, this is Thomas from Springfield Daily Radio. We are in the studio at the Innovate Springfield Incubator in downtown Springfield. My guest today is Mr. Donald Rients, one of the Republican candidates in the nearby 18th Congressional District. Thank you so much for being here. So please tell me a little bit about yourself and why are you running for Congress?
Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm running for Congress. Well, I'll tell you about myself first. That's your first question. I was raised and grew up in central Illinois. I grew up on a farm, and I'm married. It's been with a wonderful wife. Will be 30 years this year. And I have 6 children. The ages are 9, 12, 15, 19, 20, and 23. 2 boys and 4 girls. Like I said, I grew up on a farm. I walked beans and baled hay some, and helped out with some of the farming. And I tasseled corn when I could because that was good summer money. So I worked at Elms in El Paso, which was as a busboy and a dishwasher while I was in high school. And I have associate degrees from ICC, 2 of them from there. One's in industrial technology and electronics, and another one's associate in general education. And I have associate in science from Illinois Valley Community College up in Oglesby, Illinois. Senior at ISU, and that major is anthropology. But I just pursue the classes that I want, because I'm working at an insurance company down in Bloomington as a computer analyst. So I went to ROTC basic training down in Fort Knox, Kentucky when I was 17, and I did a year of ROTC at ISU as well, and I was a second lieutenant cadet there for that. I worked as a prison guard for 6 years at Stateville and Pontiac prisons, most of the time at Pontiac. And I also worked at Advanced Technology Services, that service Caterpillar computers, and then I went on to work for the insurance company I work for down in Bloomington now. I've been there over 26 years. The reason I'm running for Congress is nobody seems to be paying attention to the budget. It doesn't matter who gets in, and it's always a deficit spending. Not even an inkling the last couple of years of even trying to stop that. You should not be voting on a budget that has deficit spending, and especially long term. Every budget, the budget that the House passed last fall, over a 10-year period, would give us between 7 and 8 trillion deficit. The one that Trump's pushing right now would be close to 7 trillion over the next 10 years, and it's like 6.8 trillion, I believe. And I'm also pro-life. They passed a 20-week ban on abortion, but life starts at conception, and you just can't compromise life. So, and there's many other things that I feel strongly about that are not happening in Congress, and they're not getting things done. They did pass the balanced budget. They passed the tax break, but I think they had a lot more to do on that.
All right, well, we'll definitely be able to talk about that.
Yeah.
And again, always my first question is your number one issue. Is it the deficit?
I don't have I was asked a question. You get all kinds of questionnaires once you run for Congress, and I did it. I got them in 2015 when I ran, and I'm getting them now. I've answered probably about 20 different ones, and they're always about their agenda, and they're asked, if you get in, will you co-sponsor or sponsor this bill and push this through? And I'm like, I agree with you. I agree with what you're doing. That's not my number one thing. It's not my number 2, number 3 thing. And like I said, my balanced budget is definitely tied to number 1. Pro-life is number 1. The labor force in this country is number 1 to me. So I don't, if I can accomplish something there, that'd be good.
All right, so let's start with the labor force, because that's one nobody else I've interviewed so far has really been talking about. What's the issue, and what do you propose to do about it?
Wow, that's a big can of worms. You got trade. You have trade, and you have improper trading going on, right? And we will receive, and it's when you ask a question, it's open-ended. There's a lot of answers for this, and I have a lot of ideas.
No, please.
So you have trade issues. We're getting products brought in that are not the best products. We're getting products brought in that are poisonous, right? Like the dog food from China was poisoned at one time, right? The Thomas Train's paint was lead coming from China at one time. You get like honey coming to this country. It's made of rice sugar, right? And that passes a honey test. So it's hard to, all these products are coming in from outside this country that are not good for the citizens and are not high quality or decent quality to compete with people in this country. So that's one of the things that he's dealt with was that trade issues. I mean, China and I'm sure other countries are using software products that they did not purchase. And here in this country, we're pretty strict on making sure that our corporations are following copyright laws and paying for the products they use. Now, we got all the intellectual property here, let's say like for Windows, Microsoft Windows, that all the companies here pay for. Or are they paying for it in China? Are they paying for it in Indonesia? And that creates an unfair trade issue. So those things have to be addressed. As far as people in this country, another one of my big ones is the H1A and H2A and H2B issue. If you understand what that is.
If you'd explain a little bit in depth, because I know that's not as straightforward.
Okay, the H1A is a technical, and H2A and H2B is agricultural for legal immigrants to work in this country under certain plans. And the purpose of those plans is to supplement our workforce where we have a deficit. If we don't have knowledge in some area, or if we don't have the labor force in some area, then they're allowed to come in, and we generally have a limit on how many people can come in under those visas. And what's happening, it seems to me, is we're getting a lot of those work visas coming in here and replacing jobs where Americans could do the job, or freezing or lowering the salaries of the people who are working here. And that's no good. That shouldn't happen. I mean, I would even stretch that farther to say for like India, and such. India has a lot of call centers. Pakistan has call centers. There's all these call centers that corporations are farming their work out to. And should there be a tax on that? I mean, because we got people here who could do those call centers as well. And that's a type of commerce. That's a type of trade that we're doing. So, I mean, there ought to be some stopgaps in there so to make sure all people in this country are being able to have jobs.
Yeah, one of the arguments I've heard there is that American workers are uncompetitive due to government regulation. Is that the case, or is there more going on there? Why is it cheaper to go to India?
Well, I think they just pay them cheaper. There's a cheaper lifestyle there, made cheaper. I mean, the medicine in India is cheaper, right? Going to a doctor in India is cheaper. So there's a lot of cheaper cost in India to living there. So that's one. Now, as far as having some type of regulations, I mean, we have lots of rules and regulations here. And so anybody that comes here, it's under those same laws. It's supposed to be easy. So if you get a doctor that comes from Pakistan, that doctor should have the same accreditations as you have here in order to become a doctor, right? There should be. So that if that's being policed properly, then we're okay there. But it's cheaper to live in some of those countries, and maybe those countries aren't as fair with their employees, right? You may have child labor laws. I mean, that's another thing. If we're buying shoes from Malaysia, and then they got some slave factory, child slave factory. I don't call it slave, but when you call it child that we don't allow in this country, and then you get your unfair labor force. Yeah.
And so obviously you want to make sure that those countries were meeting our standards rather than lowering our standards.
In order to do trade with us, they have to meet those standards, I believe.
That's definitely very fair. And let's go to the. Sorry, and you said you had a lot on this issue. I didn't want to cut you off and transition away.
Yeah. Well, regulation. There's some regulations. There's and this some people ask me for we can do for our district as far as labor. Well, I'm not working for the federal government at that point, but I am working for our district. But it affects more than just the district. And in Illinois, we have an Illinois issue. We have labor issues. We have tax issues in this state. Or deficit spending and overspending of government that's really making people leave the state, and go into more business-friendly states. So.
Going then to the deficit, obviously you mentioned the multi-trillion-dollar deficit spending, the
Yeah.
tens of trillions of dollars in debt. How did we get to this point, do you think? And because unless we know how we got here, how are we going to get away from it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have never thought about how we got to it, because I have, but I haven't researched how we got to it. But I'll tell you, I get asked, when I went around to get the petitions to run for this seat, and we needed 1,033, and last time I think we needed about 1,300 when I ran, and we got 1,577, and half of those I got myself. We went door to door, and you knock on a lot of doors, maybe 1 in 4, 1 in 5 that you'll get a signature, that's proper and everything. So we have to make sure they're proper, and are you? I'm sidestepping, but I'm just explaining how this comes about.
No, for sure.
So you ask them, are you a registered voter? Are you a Republican? And you're at the right address and everything. So you got good signatures. But anyway, talking to these people, someone would say, so what are you going to do for this district? And I sit there and I think, and that's one of the things that led me to really understand the problem, because people say the district spends, I don't know what the numbers are out, but say the district spends $1 million out the federal government. Well, those people are expecting more than $1 million to come back in. In any other world that I know of, that's called deficit spending. So if you're trying to bring more in than what you're sending out, you're going to have a problem. And if every congressman's doing that, and every senator's doing that for the state, you're never going to get to a balanced budget, because of what the federal government, I'm for a smaller federal government, but what the federal government is for is for infrastructure, is for protect us through the military, and some other minor oversight, right? That's what the federal government's for. And I think how we got to it is I think congressmen think they need to keep their people happy by bringing things in. And the more they bring in, and they can make a deal to bring in, then the more people that will vote for them. And they don't think of how that affects the nation as a whole.
So you're planning to take those hard votes and say, we have to do less.
We'll start off. I would say yes in the overall, but we have to start off with government. The federal government's too large to start with. In general, it needs reduced. But there's also corruption. There's also fraud, like in Medicaid, and some of the welfare stuff. There's fraud. There's overspending, like the military spend $1,000 for a toilet seat, right? Things like that. And like we send money to countries, as this nation sends money to countries that aren't our friends. And I heard once they had a tea party I was at, and it was a really good idea. Was the fact that when we send money out to a country, we expect something for it. We don't expect to send them money and here you go and you can do it with it and you can still call us bad names. That's wrong. So you can reduce your spending by not sending to our enemies, right? You can reduce spending by reducing fraud and get some things around that. You can so that's a start. But yeah, I would think that we would probably have to dig into our actual spending besides that.
Is there any specific area that the federal government is in that you think it should not be in?
Oh, there's a.
I know that's a dangerous question.
How many departments does the president have? I mean, I don't know how Department of Education, for instance, is not a federal. It's not a federal mandate. That's up for the states. And why do we have a federal Department of Education? It's fine. There's some savings to be done there. I mean, the Department of Education may be an overall help to the states in some degree, where they can help the higher education and the colleges and such. But to track our children, and keep track of every children, have those things brought up. They had Common Core. Right, Common Core came out, and that was, to me, unconstitutional to be able to do that. And then so they moved it to the ESSA, where they said, well, you don't have to follow Common Core now. But you do have to have a standard. Each state has to have a standard. Well, let the states decide their standard and don't mandate it through the federal government through bribery. Well, we're not going to give you this money that you gave us unless you do this. That's ridiculous. That money ought to stay in the state. right? That way the people see where it's going and they got their hands on it, right? If you're in more control, the more local the money is, the more control you have over the money, and you know best where it needs to go. So, something like this, so the Department of Education would be one that would be lessened, but that's not a big hit on the deficit.
No, I mean,
So, yeah.
but again, it's every dollar counts.
Yeah, every dollar counts.
And thinking of other sort of big issues in that line, we just passed a major tax overhaul,
Mm-hmm.
which some critics are saying reduce the amount of revenue the federal government's going to generate. At the same time, it is of course putting more money into people's hands. Do you think that was a good approach, or given that you are I'll say deficit hawk, not as just as it is, was that the right move at this moment?
I'm conservative. It's in the right direction. The move's in the right direction. I mean, it's the CBO, what it says, like $1.5 trillion deficit it would give us, if up front. But you got to remember, when they get that $1,000 check, they're spending. They're going to get they're going to get taxed on that as well. all these companies out to give them $1,000 checks right now, but they'll get taxed on that. But then they're going to go out and spend that, and that money is going to be taxed when you go out and buy that TV with the $800 you have left, and then that gets taxed, and then it just rolls. The money rolls. You could call it trickle down if you want, but I think most of that $1.5 trillion will be taken care of through the additional spending and the multiple times that money will be spent, and then that produces new jobs, and then those people get taxed.
So you're not concerned about that as strongly as some of the other people we've had on the show.
Yeah, I don't know who I've seen a couple on here, but yeah, but I haven't watched them all, so I don't know who. Yeah, I am not concerned about the $1.5 trillion. Now I'm concerned about the budget they just had out. It has another what was $1.5 trillion spent? I forget what the number was on the deficit that they want to pass. So
you're more concerned about, is there anything in that budget, again, not on a line-by-line basis, but again, I've seen that budget does in fact increase government spending.
Yes. It decreases in most areas. It increases military. But some of the increases in military it was like $800 billion increase in military or something. I have to look at the numbers. But a lot of that was reduced through us pulling out of Afghanistan and such. So some of that's offset. Obama couldn't do it for 8 years, but Trump gets there, and a year later we're pulling out. I mean, I hate to say that, we're doing here these pulling out, but our military presence in spending in those countries is lessening. So yeah.
All right. Thinking of moves under the Trump administration, then going in a slightly different direction.
Okay.
In December, the FCC removed the net neutrality regulations. Yeah. Was that the correct move?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Deregulation or regulation generally isn't a good thing. Before Obama created the regulation, we didn't have that in our internet, and we were running fine. We were doing great. I mean, what was wrong with the internet? You have to put something in there to break it? I don't know. So they threw a regulation into it, and so Trump was just removing the regulation that wasn't there 2 years prior, and the internet was doing just fine. And I don't know if I have much of an issue with if somebody is taking a lot of bandwidth that they pay a little more than somebody else who doesn't. So, and that's part of what that is, not to have the net neutrality.
No, for sure. Again, in that same vein, thinking of Obama regulations of the internet, he actually gave up some of the U.S. control of the ICANN domain registry. What do you think about that move?
They're ridiculous. I thought that we owned it. We had the internet. We were in control of the internet. If you want to, when you're the top dog in the world, you act like it. And we created the internet. This country worked at having that, and that was a value to us, right? And the fact that we're a free country, we're better apt to allow that data to move freely. You start letting other countries control it, it's out of our hands. So I have more faith in this country handling that than I do China, so yeah. All right.
And then this is going to be a three-parter on climate change. Is climate change real? If it is real, what's the threat does it pose? And what should the federal government do about it?
Okay. Well, I'm 54 years old. I'll be 55 this year. I remember Jimmy Carter was in office. We were getting ready. It was all about we were going into another ice age, right? So then the 90s come around. Oh, Gore and all that. We're going into we're gonna burn up. We're going to have global warming. Well, I guess that didn't fly either. So now we got climate change, and the climate change is, and on the argument for climate change, they say, well, the climate is becoming more volatile. That's their argument, that it's highs and lows worse and war storms and worse and stuff like that. But in 2013, the UN did a research project on global warming, and I'll call what they want. They want to call it climate change. I'll call them global warmers yet. They can call it all they want to hide what they think. And in 2013, the UN said, no, we're not warming up. And then, of course, NOAA came out with a study in 2015, the very controversial one, that said that we are warming up. But that one had a lot of flaws in it. They came out with the numbers originally for NOAA. They looked at the numbers. It didn't meet their presumptions. They presumed that the world was warming up. And they looked at it and said, so they had to go back and look at things and tweak the numbers. They said, well, ships were generally a little higher. That's how we used to measure it. Now we're measuring it with buoys in the water, and that's a little cooler, right? So we got to adjust for that. So they did these numbers, and they did it. They did it without following the guidelines as well. So they did all kinds of things to let the numbers meet their presumptions. So I don't trust that study at all. So, but the UN, who is generally on the left, generally the sky is falling, said the war in 2013 said we weren't warming up.
Right. So there's no. You don't think there's certainly a pressing threat or even a long-term threat?
I do not believe there's definitely pressing our long-term threat. I don't think there is. I believe that. It's good to reduce carbon monoxide. It's good to reduce sulfur in the air and lead in the air. It's good to have a clean air, clean waters, clean ground. Okay, that's not the point. But I believe in a larger being than us. And you look at that clear sky. When that sky is clear at night, if the temperature, it's matter of physics. If the temperature is 30 degrees and this ball is going through the universe, that's a finite zero, right? Infinite zero. And the temperature that we're radiating back into the space is so much. But if we're at 100 degrees, the amount of radiation going back into the space is more because it's hotter, and so it's going to release it faster. So the Earth has a controlling temperature, in it to keep it proper. Yeah.
All right. Again, with you talk about reducing lead, reducing some of these environmental pollutants.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that nuclear power has a place in America's energy portfolio going forward?
Nuclear power has definitely helped us out. Radiation's dangerous. The waste material, and they have to put it somewhere, and they put it down below. And then pretty soon the caves in. But we have a lot of waste material going into sites that they're going to be there for 1,000 years. So I think it's dangerous. We don't want another Russia Chernobyl, right? But I think it is a part of the answer. Yeah.
All right. Switching gears.
Sure.
There's a lot of talk, certainly in Illinois, but across the nation, about legalizing marijuana, both for medicinal uses and ultimately, I think, for recreational uses. Yeah. What's your take on that, though?
There's a couple pieces to it, and some of it will sound like I'm a proponent for it when I talk, but I'll say it this way: the medical marijuana, definitely. Now my opponent said no for the VA to have medical marijuana. He doesn't want the You can look at the IFI answer sheet, that you can go out there for 2018, and he's got it out there. He's against medical marijuana for the VA. I'm for it. I'm for definitely medical marijuana. Why not? It's just because the pharmaceuticals can't own it. It's a cheap drug. It's not a dangerous drug. right? And it being under control of doctors, and it used in the right purpose, it's good. Now, if we did legalize marijuana, and this is what makes you sound like a proponent, but I'm not, is it takes the money out of the hands of organized crime, right? And it controls the drug and makes it a little safer. It also, you could tax it, right, for recreational use. And generally, the behavior of it is better than alcohol, right? The people, the way they react to it's better than they would if they're drinking. So, but you can still, I mean, there's not a mandate right now, I think, on how, like when you're driving down the road, there's gotta be something that there's no mandate right now on how to give a DUI to somebody who's on too much marijuana, right? Because they don't know how to measure that and how to test that. But no, my morals say no. I'd vote no on the recreational marijuana.
All right. You are running in the Republican primary, and again, Darren LaHood is the sitting congressman of your own party.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to challenge him?
I have so many reasons.
Wow.
you need a challenger. You always have to have someone challenge. I go to the ballots and I look at that ballot, and I see one person running for each seat. And I said, this is wrong. Is this fixed? Everybody's scared. They know this guy's going to run, and that's it, and he wins and goes. And I'm not just talking about Darren, I'm talking about the seats all across the board darn there. And you just walk in, how's that a democracy? I don't understand that. And I did a lot of work to get my name on the ballot, and I did it in 2015 as well. And it's, there's a few things I would push harder. I'd go the extra mile. Like Darren co-sponsored a bill for 20 week abortion, and so you couldn't have abortions after 20 weeks, and that passed. But then it satisfies all the pro-life folks, or some of them, right? It satisfies them, then they can move on to the next election and go and feel like they've done something. If you're pro-life, we have a Republican House, Republican Senate, we have a Republican president right now. If you're pro-life, and all those guys say they're pro-life, why is the bill at 20 weeks? I don't understand. Let's say we put it to 2 weeks. I mean, I'm for more and better. I'm for it's life at conception. That's what I believe. So if you put it at 2 weeks, which one of these congressmen, which one of these senators who say they're pro-life wouldn't vote for it? Well, now you've exposed them. And I would expose those people who don't do as they say. They're in their happy little gap, happy little spot, and of getting something done, and so they're in their happy little spot. So if I got in there, I'd push something for life at conception, or that the zygote, the single cell egg with the sperm is a person, and there goes your Roe versus Wade. It's done. That's all it takes. It can be done. And if people would put their money where their mouth is, which I don't think is happening, here in this state, they raised the taxes on us. Finally, they needed to have 11, 12, 13 different Republicans vote for the thing. Well, they shouldn't be in office this next time. Then they were found out. And if you can bring those votes to the point where they put the money where your mouth is, votes, then you find those people out and you actually get people in there that do as they mean, as they say. So that's one of the reasons I'm running as well. You do as you believe and don't compromise, especially in life. I don't compromise in life, and that's a compromise when you're for life.
All right. So, what would you say to an independent voter, not a card-carrying Republican, but to an independent or to a moderate? What would you say to get them to come out on the 20th? Why are primaries for them?
Okay. So for the independent voter, for the libertarians, there's a whole list of them, just not just the independents, there's a whole bunch of them. I don't take funds from anybody else. Okay, I'm running on this campaign, I don't owe nobody anything. I mean, it's fine, I guess, if like Right to Life folks would give money to the campaign, and because they believe in what I believe in. But give money to the campaign thinking that they'll get favor later is wrong, and we shouldn't be taking money from, we're in Central Illinois. We got we're corn and beans here. We're not sugar cane. We're not oil fields. So I don't even know why money would be coming to us from those areas. So, but I'm independent as far as my ability to go out there and vote the way I believe. And what I tell you, what I believe is what I believe, and that's what I will do. And I will go the extra mile on those beliefs I've said.
All right, now, well, again, thank you very much. My guest today has been Mr. Donald Rients, running in the nearby 18th Congressional District. That primary is again
March 20th.
March 20th. And the Olympics just started,
Yeah.
So are you watching that? And what are you watching?
I'm sorry, but I have a life. I gotta work. I work, like I said, I have a job, and I have 6 children, and I'm trying to run for Congress. And, I'm president of the local fire department, and I'm president of the Gideons for our local chapter, or Livingston County Gideons of that chapter. And, I just have lots of other things going on to be able to watch TV. So, yeah.
No, again, thank you very much for being here.
Okay,
My guest
well,
today,
thank you.
Mr. Donald Rients,
Yeah.
and this has been Thomas Clatterbuck for Springfield Daily Radio.
Okay, thanks for having me.